Welcome to the Divine Paradigm Symposium, revealing universal pathways to joyful living. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gail Hogue.
And I'm Gregory Hogue.
And together, we have been researching and developing sacred geometry technologies for over 36 years to support the evolving consciousness of humanity and all life on the planet. We felt the inner call to bring together a collaboration of poignant dialogues with other visionary leaders whose work we love and have followed for many years. We will explore their insights and knowledge in these conversations to bring inspiration and clarity for navigating this amazing time. As we emerge from the pattern interrupt of COVID and challenges of the past year, deep-seated inner knowing will bring us forward into something new and perhaps unpredictable. Our intent is to support you on your path forward into a life of fulfillment. We have some very penetrating interviews with this series. Each one will offer you something of extraordinary value. So stay tuned each day for the next 3 weeks to absorb all you can from each of these amazing people. Every program will be available for 48 hours, and you can watch all the replays on Sunday. So let's get started. I'd like to invite you to enjoy this next hour with a dear friend, Natalie Ledwell. We've known Natalie for several years and just loved each other right away. And she's one of those people I know you will really get something very, very special from because she's been doing some phenomenal things. I'm going to let Gregory go ahead and read the bio.
So, Dame Natalie Ledwell is a best-selling author, host of the podcast Not Over, Just Different, co-host of the cable TV show Wake Up, and founder of Mind Movies, the hugely successful and revolutionary online personal development company that has reached over 5.8 million people worldwide. Right now, she has launched her brand new groundbreaking social and emotional learning curriculum entitled Personal Growth Studies into schools here in the US, which is designed to empower youth from ages 5 to 18 years to live fulfilling and successful lives with high self-esteem and a vision for a bright future. In October 2018, Natalie traveled to Liberia, where she met with government officials and launched personal growth studies into a number of schools, which is now in its second year, working with over 1,000 students. In 2020, Natalie had the immense honor of being knighted by the Orthodox Order of St. John, a humanitarian group recognizing individuals who are not only doing great work, but who have a big vision of the work they want to complete in the world, helping others. And you know, I have to say that when I read complete, most people that are business people compete in the world, but you're completing a vision of service. And that's incredible what you're doing.
Thank you, Dame. So you make me sound busy. I'm like, wow, I've been doing a lot. Yeah, I mean, I think that, it's an interesting dance that we can have between, running a successful business. We have a very big team, so we have a lot of financial commitments, but of course we're not, yes, we're doing this for the love, but we're also doing it for the money, so you've got to look at what that dance is and, how can we serve and still be financially successful, which gives us more funds and more means to be able to do even more service. So it's, it's been a really interesting journey, that's for sure.
Well, what was the journey in 2020? I mean, everything was shutting down, things were shifting. So for you, what was perhaps one of the biggest difficulties and maybe some of the biggest learning, the gifts that came to you from last year?
Well, it was really interesting. I had already cleared my calendar for the first 6 months of last year, 2020, even before COVID hit. Because, I travel a lot, and, I've met you on many of my travels. And so it's like, I think I just want to settle down. I just, finished renovating my apartment and I'm like, I just want to, spend some time. And then COVID hit and I'm like, did I cause COVID? Did I do that? But for me, it was like, okay, so it was a chance for me to settle down. And so we were very fortunate. Our business, Mind Movies, we're a digital company. All of our programs, and we have many of them, are all available online. So we didn't have to pivot so much as a company per se. But I remember when everything closed down, and it was like the unthinkable had happened. Like no one thought that everything would be closed down like that. And there was two things I did initially. The first thing I did was I went live on Facebook every day. I wanted to be of service to our community. I wanted to keep everybody calm. And I wanted to serve in the best way that I knew how. And in the beginning of the pandemic, I was like, guys, everything that we've learned into this point, now is the time for us to be applying it. Like we learned all of this for a time like this. So this is where we want to, this is where the rubber hits the road. We want to, make sure that and I was reminding them of all of the things that we'd learned and how to apply that to this particular situation, which was great. But because I had nothing on my calendar, who knew it was going to go for a whole year, but I had nothing on my calendar, it gave me space to think, and it gave me space to reevaluate, which I think a lot of us did. And it gave me the opportunity to work with a coach. I started working with a girlfriend of mine who channels the universe. So, and I made a commitment to her. So once a week, I would sit down with her and we'd talk for maybe over the phone, like an hour to an hour and a half. And it was such an interesting process because at the time I was having a problem with my left knee. I was looking at getting surgery. I had a couple of other ailments and so forth. And so some of the things I learned from that whole experience is that, our bodies are these amazing, beautiful, awesome machines. And if we're suffering from some kind of pain or injury or some kind of condition, it really is our body trying to tell us to look at something. We can and the sessions I would do with this girlfriend of mine, we'd sit down and she's like, okay, so tell me what's going on. I went, I got this left knee pain. She goes, okay. She goes, are you ready? I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. She goes, okay, so this is what universe is telling me. Can you find the thought that you have about, the way that I think about myself, my relationship with my ex-husband, business partner, all these kind of things. And sometimes it'd be thoughts that I didn't even want to admit that I think, I'm like, I don't know if I want to admit to that. Okay, maybe, but then we'd be able to unpack that. And so it was such a deep personal journey for me in 2020. And some of the things, like the big things that came out for me were looking at parts of me that I didn't want to look at, we call it the shadow side. And it's easy for us to go, yes, I've got this limiting belief or I've got this, but sometimes we kind of need to go a little bit deeper than that. And we'll go, look at this behavior pattern that keeps showing up. Where is that coming from? Let's look at that and unpack that. And I realized how much it takes courage and it takes commitment to be able to look at those things. But until we have the courage and the commitment to look at them, then we're never going to be able to clear them. Because I think that, even with the work that I do, we talk about limiting beliefs. We talk about when you're working towards a goal and you'll notice these thoughts that are coming up. And, we have processes like EFT and other different modalities that you can use to be able to clear those, but they're kind of more like surface thoughts, right? They're not connected to the deeper part of that. And so, we'll clear all the surface things that might help us to achieve that goal, but we're not changing the core of who we are. And so for us to be able to step into the next version of ourselves, we kind of need to have that commitment to look at the darker parts of ourselves. So, you know, it was quite the journey. It's still going, actually. But yeah, it was a big thing.
And I imagine it will continue to keep going as it is for all of us.
Yep.
And, you know, Natalie, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think everyone that I've spoken to, everyone that I know who is really living authentically, even though, like you said, we've peeled so many layers of the onion and we've done all this work, and now it's like going really to some core issues, some really deep stuff, some of which may even be beyond this lifetime. You know, I was
Right.
reading something this morning about how we carry our ancestors, and perhaps there's even, you know, patterns and beliefs that we are holding in our bodies and our lives that were just given to us ancestrally. And it's time, that's, you know, that's what is such a gift about COVID, that we all, everybody on the whole planet at the same time was like, it was a screeching halt, stop. And what could we do other than looking at ourselves, facing ourselves?
Yeah.
So what gave you the courage and the incentive to keep going deeper and deeper? What you know, what was that for you?
Two things. The first one is that, you know, as you were mentioning when you were introducing me, that I've created this curriculum for schools with a colleague of mine, and I've been stuck, and I've realized that I'm the bottleneck. And so I'm like, I need to be able to clear whatever this is to be able to step in and start championing this amazing program that's going to change millions of children's lives, and the teachers and the parents. Like I know, like I believe in the program so much, and I know how amazing it is, but for some reason I was just, you know, stuck in this stagnant place. And so that was one of the reasons I needed to get deeper. You know, I have this story, and, you know, and I think the overarching thing from last year for me was looking at all of my stories. You know, one of my stories, especially about this program, was that, you know, I left school when I was 15. You know, I'm not really qualified. Like, who do I think I am? I'm like this country girl from Australia. Like, who am I to be able to do this? And so I'd have this, you know, and I go into this little, you know, victim pity party story about, you know, look, you know, I don't think I'm the right person, you know, all of that. But that was holding back this incredible, you know, this incredible project. But it wasn't just releasing the story. It was also because while I'm in that story, I can't see the version of myself I need to be to step into being the champion for this program. You know, I'm still stuck in that old story. So I had to release it and then really spend time being clear about what my role is in this project, what my commitment is going to be, how that's going to unfold, how I need to show up, and spend time there, you know, through my visualizations. Otherwise, there's just no way I could have done that. You know, so that was a really big thing, because I knew we had to get the program out. It was time for that to happen. And I'm like, whatever it is that's holding me back, I need to be able to release that. And the other thing is that you know, my husband and I separated 8 years ago, and I've pretty much been single that entire time. And I'm like, you know what, I want to meet, it's time I meet someone. And, you know, it's hilarious because I would for years be going, I really want to meet someone. I want to be in a relationship. But if you looked at my calendar would not reflect any time for a relationship. I was just traveling all over the place. And so it was amazing what happens when you set an intention. I start to clear out. And of course, a lot of the work that I was doing was clearing all of the tendrils and the little bits and pieces that I still had, and the old stories I had around my marriage, and, you know, how that was showing up. And again, when I looked at a lot of those stories, I was blaming, I was, you know, shaming, and I was stuck in a little victim story. And I'm like, wow. And I'm starting to see how this is showing up in all these other, you know, areas. And so I had to clean all that up so that I could be, you know, this version of myself that was ready for a relationship. but it's COVID, and everyone's locked in their houses. But I actually met my man. We connected. Actually, it's been a year. We've been together for a year in the 22nd of this month. And because it's COVID, so you go for a walk. That's what you do on your first date. And on that first walk, which we walked for an hour, and then we sat down and talked for another hour. We both knew on that walk. And I had a mind movie about relationship. He was saying things that were affirmations in my mind movie on that walk. It was like, wow, this is amazing. And it kind of happened a little quickly once I, started action towards that. But I had to release all of those stories. And one of the big things that we realized on that first date is that when we talked about our previous marriages, because he was married before, we both spoke about how we showed up in the end of it, not blaming the other person. He said that was one of the most attractive things that I heard you say on that whole walk. And I go, well, I said, you did the same. He goes, yeah, but it means that you did some work. And I'm like, yeah, I only have done the work a few months ago, preparing myself for this, So they were the two big reasons why I'm like, no, I need to clear out everything. Let's keep going. Wow. And of course, now I'm in relationships, so it's another transformational journey by itself. So
there's always more to come, right?
Right.
It's wonderful. Oh, you look like you're having so much fun too.
So
we are.
It's an interesting process when you talked about working deeper on yourself, and yet what really put you in that position was not doing it for Natalie, but because you had this project of service to others. And so there's something about that sometimes, like you talked about being in that victimhood, which we all get into too easily. And we know it's not where we're supposed to be, but that's the beauty of service to a bigger goal to these people that pulled you out of that and got you into this stage of transformation. So would you speak a little bit to the importance of that in your life and what it's doing to help you have a better life, to have a boyfriend now?
Yeah.
And that really was kind of a side panel or a side journey that happened because of this other journey you were on.
Yeah. Well, I think and again, another gift that came out of 2020 for me is really looking at things from a completely different angle. In my mind, and again, it's coming back to the stories, and I know this is a common theme, because here's the two big overarching things that I learned. Number one is that when I construct my stories, when I create them in the beginning, I'm creating them from a place where I want people to perceive me in a certain way. I want them to think I'm smart, or that I'm funny, or that I'm, whatever that is, rather than just authentically going, this was my experience, and this is, and coming from that. So I've changed a lot of that, so that now when I'm talking, especially when I'm teaching, I'm coming from this really deep place of authenticity. Now, the only way I could have got there was by going through, all the coaching that I did last year and being, radically honest with myself. Yeah, we can have the courage to look at these dark places, but we have to be really honest with ourselves to be able to, to have the transformation. Like without that, we're still stuck in those old stories. Now, the other big thing I learned about my stories as well is that a lot of the time I'm still telling the story from the pain I was in at the time, not from this place of evolution of where I am now. And the thing is, I can see the gift. I understand why it happened. I understand how it changed me positively as a result of it, but I'm still telling the old story. It's like, no. Now we're going to be telling it from this place of, of empowerment, or like this place of, of where I am, this, expanded place of where I am now, which is really important. So sorry, Greg, what was the question again? I got a sidetrack there, because I'm like, because I it was such a huge lesson for me. And I think a lot of us can, if we look back at these stories, we're like, well, yeah, maybe I am telling that from a place where, it's not really serving me.
Well, before I hand this over to Gregory, I want to comment on this because I think this is really a juicy place. And that is that learning to be present is probably the biggest thing that is up for all of us.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing, having COVID, which stopped us in our tracks from doing all the things that we normally do that we can depend upon. And instead, we were taking that time, this time of silence and being cut off from people and things and normal pathways. And for me, it brought me to a place of presence. Whenever there's something radical that happens, like whether it's a pandemic or we went through a horrendous flood back in 2013, it threw us into learning to be present. I can't say that I mastered it by any stretch. It's so important that it doesn't matter what happened before, whatever those old stories are, that's just what they are. And in order to really be here fully, authentically with who you are and what you can create, it's about taking all of you and setting it in the present. So I'd love to hear your take on how you experienced that for yourself during this time.
Yeah, well, and it's all about that. I remember when the pandemic first hit, I doubled down on my meditations. And I think it was because I was really just feeling everything from everybody. Social media was becoming a very unfriendly place to be for me. I was finding a lot of my, transformational, spiritual kind of friends getting caught up in a whole ton of, crazy rhetoric about not wearing masks and a whole bunch of other stuff. But there was such division. I'm like, okay, I need to get back to center. I need to get back to love. I need to get back to myself. So being still and doing that meditation, I did one before I went to sleep at night, because otherwise I was having crazy dreams. I don't know if you guys experienced that, but I was like, it was off the hook. I'm like, I need to calm everything down. And then of course, in the mornings before I started work, I needed to get back to center so that I could serve and be from that place. And, having these moments, even like, because I had the time, because I wasn't running around like a chook with its head cut off, I was actually able to sit down and enjoy a cup of tea on my balcony, and being, still and in that moment and having these mindful days. It wasn't just a pocket of time here and there. I would have days where I got to the end of it and I could sit down and really appreciate what happened during the day, be grateful for all the gifts and everything that came up from the interviews, the conversations, and the things that I was having, and just be still in those moments. I think that for me, that was a huge gift that I got from 2020, which I'm still carrying through to now. My life hasn't got crazy, and it won't again. That was one of the evaluations. I'm like, do I really need to travel that much? I'm like, I don't think so.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions, and I don't think any of us really want to go back. This is a time of constructing what's really coming forward. And hopefully these conversations that we're having will help people, assist each person in finding their mechanisms and their ways to construct their new universal pathways and their personal pathways. And that's, one of the reasons that, we really wanted to bring you and other people who we love to speak about this. And again, it is about service, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And back to what I asked you before.
Fun to get back there.
Well, which is just an extension of everything we're dancing around right now.
Yeah.
But I thought it was interesting where your motivation for improving your life was that you were the bottleneck for a project that was of service to so many. So it's just the dynamic of being of service to all or to many or some bigger project that's helping other human beings. It has a way of serving us in very interesting back ways. Perhaps the person you're with now as your partner came about because of the work you did, because you were in the service to others where you found you were the bottleneck and
Right.
you wanted to make a difference. So that's the unique dynamic I wanted you to speak to a little more, and you are.
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, and so there are so many things that came in, so many lessons that I learned. And I honestly don't feel like I'm the same person now than I was at the beginning of 2020. But because I made the commitment to do that, I made the commitment to really, going on that deeper transformational journey, because like I said, the two things, like the relationship and definitely the kids program. But I also had to get to a place where I could see what was possible. Now, I think a lot of us, when we are stuck in, because, some of us went through the pandemic kind of easily. I mean, easier than others. I was definitely went through it much easier. Like, our business is already online. I just finished renovating my lovely apartment that's on the 10th story of a building. So I feel like I'm outside anyway. So I didn't feel like I was stuck in. But I also got to meet a lot of my neighbors that I normally wouldn't have had a relationship with. So I was able to do it kind of easier. And I focused on serving. Anything that I could do to serve. I started my podcast. There's a whole ton of stuff I was able to do because I had the time and I wanted to be of service. But then we have other people, and I have other friends of mine who are in this space who really struggled because they were focusing on the pandemic itself, the unknowingness of it, which was huge. You think about it, the whole world stepped into the unknown. And some people handled it okay. And I've been working with Dr. Joe Dispenza for years now. So I was like, oh, here we are in the unknown. Wonder what's going to happen next. This is great. Because, you're just like, well, I'm open to this. Whatever, bring it. Whatever is coming, like bring it, because I feel like I have a foundation to be able to handle it. But there was a lot of the world that was like, I don't know what's going on. I want to get back to work. When can this, and then they're just, focusing on what they don't have, what's been taken away. The bad part of what's going on, rather than going, well, okay, if I surrender into knowing that everything's happening in divine timing, exactly when it's supposed to, and everything's happening for my highest good, then what is the gift in this? What can I take from this? How can I use this time to be able to make a positive shift in my life? Now, I know, especially the beginning of last year, we were serving a lot of extra people because a lot of people are online, because where else are you going to go? They're going, and because I had the time to stop and go, wait a minute, I really don't like my life. I really want to do something different. I don't know what that is. And so they're looking, they're seeking. And then of course they come across us, and then we were able to, to funnel them into the right programs to be able to help them to come out this other side of that and go, okay, there are some things I didn't like, and that you were just saying this before, Gail. There are some things that I'm like, I'm happy to leave that behind. There are some things I'm really looking forward to getting back to. But there's other things that I've had enough time, like it's been, over a year now, for me to be able to change my behavior in a way that it's going to positively impact how I'm moving forward now. So, for me, I'm always looking at the positive side of everything. And I was kind of like, wow, where's this going to go? And being in that surrender, which is such an important part of this whole, process of life. Like, if we're trying to force things and fight things and resist things, then life is nothing but a struggle for us. And so when you can just truly just surrender into it and going, oh, okay, all right, universe, where are we going now? Show me where we're going. Then it's a better experience.
It truly is. And it's, I look at this as a big shift from something I think we're all really familiar with, those of us particularly who have been, who treasure being successful. And we've pushed, we've worked hard, we've pushed to get to where we want to be, right? And that's not what this time is about anymore. It's allowing,
Yeah.
It's utilizing that feminine perspective and letting go. For a long time, I thought about how we were going to get to a place where there was going to be a transformational shift where this power over model was going to deconstruct somehow. Who knew how it was going to happen, right? And the power over model really doesn't work. And we were part of that too. We as women and men were all doing it. And guess what? I think we have, like you said, we've had this year and a half now where I think we've stopped enough in our tracks that we are really creating these new pathways so that allowing isn't as scary, dealing with the unknown isn't as much of a like gripping experience. Instead, it's like, oh, maybe there's something that can be easy and I think the other piece is to do it together. I think this whole you've talked so much about service.
Yeah.
And as soon as we're thinking about how we serve others and the good of all, we're into just a totally different way of being, a different conversation. And that to me is so much of what we're putting back together again here in the way that we're coming back to, to the whole, to create a whole different kind of whole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but everything's been changed.
Mm-hmm.
Our spending habits, where we spend our money, how we spend our money, our behaviors, who we're choosing to spend time with. I don't have the opportunity to catch up with the hundreds of people that I know and people that I would consider my friends. So you kind of get to this place, it's like, okay, well, I have a certain amount of time. I could only see a certain amount of people at a time because we're still not doing big gatherings or anything here in California. So it's like, who am I choosing to spend my time with? And that's also changed as well. So we've got this change in our behavior and our patterns, which is great. I think because our mind quietened down last year, there was definitely a lot of programming, a lot of beliefs and behavior patterns coming to the surface that we were able to make it through to our conscious mind because all of a sudden we're quiet and we're starting to notice things. And I think it was also from the people that I've been working with in the Mind Movies community, so much more self-awareness, with me, the biggest, not just the coaching that I was doing, but my beau, his name is Bert, he's very healthy. He's been a very positive impact on me, which is great. But one of the things that he taught me to do, and this is a part of mindfulness I hadn't thought about before, was, because especially around what I eat, because, in the beginning of the pandemic, I definitely got the COVID 15, the 15 pounds you put on during COVID, because you're like, I'm just going to eat something that's going to make me feel good, on the way in. But what he was teaching me is like, no, be mindful after your meal. Check in afterwards and go, well, how did I feel after I ate that food? And they're like, I hadn't even thought about that before. And they're like, oh, right. So now I'm kind of, getting to a place where that mindfulness is being, applied to my health goals. So, but the self-awareness, everyone's becoming much more self-aware. And like I said, these thoughts were starting to come to the surface and people didn't know what to do with it. They're like, I need some direction here. Like I'm trying to figure out what to do. And being able to tap into some different modalities and different ways of looking at that, we've been able to equip people with enough tools in their tool belt to be able to help them with any of these emotional, mental, spiritual, I don't want to call them crises, but, things that come up, obstacles that come up for us. And it's like, okay, well, we survived 2020 and I feel like I've got all this extra, tools in my belt that now I can kind of handle anything. So that's been a big lot of the work that I've been doing in 2020 is equipping people to be able to do that, which is also the motivation behind the kids program, is to be able to help kids to be able to do the same.
Mm-hmm. So I want to segue into something because you've created some wonderful, wonderful tools for people. And you're offering something really fabulous to our audience. And I'd love you to share what this is about, how people can be served by it, you would take it away.
Yes. So I think that, I teach law of attraction most of the time and how to create and manifest things. But a big part of that, and we've been talking about this, is being able to see myself or see yourself in the future that you want to create. Not only do you need to be able to see yourself there, but you need to be able to feel what it's like to be there. We know that our emotions are the frequency that we send out into the universe. And so when we're in something like a pandemic, when we're in these lower frequency emotions of being in the unknown and being frustrated and impatient, and from that place, nothing good comes from that place. We just stay where we are at that time. And so, what I've created is this awesome little guided visualization, or a guided, guided meditation. And what it does is, before you sit down to do it, you want to think about a goal, or put something in your mind of what it is that you want to achieve. And then all you need to do is just listen to this, guided meditation. It really helps you to be able to go through the process of not just knowing what that is, but being able to see yourself and feel what it's like to already be there. Sometimes we find visualization very difficult because maybe it's a place that we haven't been to before, or an experience we haven't experienced before. But if you listen to a guided meditation or guided visualization like I have for you today, then it'll guide your mind to a place where you can easily see and feel yourself in that beautiful future. So that is my little gift for you today.
Lovely, lovely.
So when you were talking about the shifts that happened during 2020 was a wonderful time of growth for all of us. And yet there were so many of us that went into, oh my God, who believed it was going to be so long or so deep? And so my thought is that there are going to be more and more things happening on this planet where we're going to feel the connection all around the planet. I mean, some of the things going on with weather, where this is starting to be, the thing that's replacing the pandemic in terms of it's affecting all of us, and it's challenging. And the point is, there was a moment there where you were talking about what Joe Dispenza was talking about, approaching things. And I know for me, I look at life as an adventure. I look at it, I often call it a game, because when we turn it into play, when we turn it into something that we're learning and interacting with, then it becomes a continually new, joyful expression and fun thing. So what do you think are some of the places that we're going to, and how to approach it with that attitude that you were expressing just a few moments ago?
Yeah, Greg, I think that when you do that, what you're doing is you're becoming the observer. We can be really stuck in this 3D, this third dimension here, where we're, caught off guard and taken out by a pandemic, or, about whatever else that is. And it feels like that we're at the whim of anything that's happening in this, this 3D world. So we have no tools. We don't have anything to be able to kind of to safeguard us from that, because we're just, like a player, we're like an actor, we're like someone who's in the theater. And what it does is it emotionally takes us off kilter. But when we can step outside of it for a moment and become the observer of it, and then we're sort of seeing it from, like, we could be, say, in an argument with someone. And when we're in that argument, and because we're so emotionally charged, all we can see is our side of things. And we're so irrationally passionate about what our stance is. And that there was a lot of that going on in 2020. Black Lives Matter, the pandemic, getting vaccinated, wearing a mask. Oh my God, I took 3 months off social media. I'm like, I can't even do this anymore. But all these things, because we're so emotionally charged on what's happening here, but when we can step outside of that and we can detach emotionally for a moment, we look at the higher picture and go, oh, yeah, see, I see the person that I'm having this argument with, this is how they're feeling. This is where they're coming from. I can't see that when I'm in the argument and I'm emotionally, I have to get outside of it. So when you look at life like it's a game, which, come on, it is. Let's face it, it so is. When we know how to manifest, when we know how to create these specific outcomes in our life, the only thing that stops it from materializing faster than other times is because we don't believe it's going to, or we forget that, remember, this is a game. We can, we get to create all these kinds of things in our life. And so it helped, I think, from that place of observation, it can help to have empathy, which we forgot a lot about that in 2020 as well, because everyone was so, everyone was so emotionally raw because of the pandemic. And then something like Black Lives Matter comes along, and we are outraged and things are going on, but then there's arguments on both sides, and it just got to a point, and then we've got all the conspiracy stuff that's going on. It got to a point where I think because we didn't have that ability to emotionally detach, be an observer, we forgot that life was a game, but we also lost our discernment, which I think happened a lot as well, and it got difficult, more difficult than ever, any time in the history of the planet, to be discerning about what was showing up online and what to believe. Then you put on top of that the algorithms of Facebook and Google, and how they only keep showing you more and more of what you've clicked on before. So you only get to see one side of the story. So again, from this view out here, I can understand why people had differing points of view, because I'm like, that person's not seeing what that person's seeing, and the reason I know this is because, my partner, he has certain political beliefs. I'm Australian, so I don't really, follow a political party, but I hang around with people who are in the opposite camp, right? And then you look at, we would look at the things that were coming up on our computers when we were searching for exactly the same thing, and it was completely different. So we're seeing completely different things. So, remembering that it's a game, having that outside view helps us a little bit more to have an understanding and empathy and discernment about what's going on. Because, it got a little out of control there for a while.
Yeah, isn't that amazing how we can be having the same experience and it is a completely different revelation for each person. And that's the beauty of being able to come back into the whole, and I think that's I'd like to kind of move into that conversation a little bit with you, that hopefully we are moving back to coming back together again. I mean, it's sort of like one step forward and two steps backward, but with these different perspectives and the division and all of the algorithms and everything, that has made it more difficult for us to really focus on the good of all and be in that, unity again. What are some of your words of wisdom around that? How do we come back together again in a way that will be, that is authentic, that is honoring, different perspectives, and still keep holding that there's a good of all that I believe we all want in our hearts and souls?
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot to contribute on that. Because in my relationship, my boyfriend and I fall on different sides of a lot of different topics, a lot of big topics. And we still love each other, and we still are in a relationship together. And having a conscious conversation around these big subjects is what's really needed, what's going to be most powerful. Because I understand about how the algorithms work and all that kind of thing, I'm always open to hearing the other person's point of view. And actually, whenever I go into a conversation like that, I always go in asking questions first. I don't have a strong stand because I don't know whether what I'm seeing is completely true. It's difficult to trust anything that you see, even though it looks, it could look like it's real. It's like, well, I don't really know if this is true or not. So I'm not going to be passionately attached to this, this opinion, because it is only an opinion. Opinions are not really right or wrong. Our opinions are based on the information that we've been given. And I understand that we've all been given something different. And so I really like to hear first what the other person has to say and what their side of the story is, the information that they're getting. And sometimes I will be flabbergasted. I'm like, really? I go, I've not seen anything like that. Can you show me where you found that? Because I'd like to know. So not being so attached, going asking questions. And even when you end the conversation and you're not in a place where you agree, which has happened to me many times, I'm just like, but I love you and I see you and I understand why you think that the way that you do. I don't necessarily agree, but I get it. And I think that was a really big part of my relationship. It was like navigating through those kind of conversations, especially when everything was way more controversial than it ever has been. Politics was the most controversial it's ever been. And I know, like, I've seen TV shows and documentaries about the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. It's always been the same. There's always one side doesn't agree with the political party that's in and blah, blah, blah. It just seemed to be in a whole other level in the previous 4 years. I'm not for or against the previous political party that was in. Like I said, I don't really go either way. And I know that the previous political party achieved quite a bit, but, there was a lot of controversy going on, and just having to be open to sitting in a conversation, because I know some people couldn't do that without getting like emotionally out of control. So my question is, are they your emotions, or what is manipulating those emotions to come to the surface for you? And I think that the environment, the climate that was online, the rhetoric that was happening, and it was relentless. And you think about it, people were online way more than they would have normally been as well. So I think there was just so many different ingredients and combinations that added to the outrageousness of what was happening and the conversations that were happening online. It really did get out of control. But we seem to have got back to a little bit of, calmness now, which is great. But just for me, it's like I can't be sure about anything. So I'm not going to go into a conversation thinking I know everything, because I really know that I don't.
That's incredible.
So where do you go to be sure of what is really right for you? I mean, what's that process of connecting through your heart center?
I was about to say, I'm glad that you're pointing in, because I'm like, I go in here. There's nowhere out there that helps me do that. And that is definitely my meditations. When I meditate, and I do different types of meditations depending on, the day and the things that's going on. But, my favorite form of meditating is just to get really still, to connect to the void, connect to the everything, and just to be there. I am there. I am connected to everything and connected to nothing. And in that void and in that place it's like I'm connected to the universe. And the longer that I can stay there, the more still it becomes. I also, when I'm coming out of those kind of meditations, if I do have a question or something that I'm thinking about, I will always ask it then. And I always get a lot of insight. I do the same thing first thing in the morning as I'm waking up. I'll ask that question, and I often get a lot of insight coming in there as well. And I think a lot of it is about creating space and time and opportunity to be able to have that connection. Like if we cultivate the connection between us and the divine, and we do it on a regular basis, then it's easier for the divine to be able to communicate with us. Sometimes we we forget that, and it is a relationship. It is, and I think the more often that we do that, the easier it is for us to have the trust and the faith and the knowing that everything is happening for us.
Yeah. Lovely. Beautiful. And Natalie, I know we're kind of rolling towards the end of our time together, and I want you to talk about, you have some beautiful gifts that you're offering people that are with some of the work you've been doing with Mind Movies.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share about that and tell people about what they're going to get from that?
Yeah, so we've created 6 pre-made Mind Movies. And the reason we do this is for a couple of things. Number one, like I can, explain to you what a Mind Movie is, and you're kind of like, yeah, I don't quite get that in my mind. But this is a way for you to really experience what a Mind Movie is. And so, the 6 pre-made Mind Movies that we've created are on things like courage and confidence, which is something that we all really need right now as we're trying to navigate through this new world, the new normal. Things like vibrant health, self-love, attracting, great friends, finding inner peace, and attracting wealth and abundance. And the cool thing about these is when you download them, you can save them to your computer, or you can save them to your phone or your tablet. So you can actually carry them around with you. And they are fairly generic. But the cool thing about them is when you say watching the Vibrant Health Mind Movie, because the thing is, we all want vibrant health. That's great. But by watching the Mind Movie and reading these affirmations and getting into the vibration of that, you get to see what vibrant health means to you and what that looks like for you. So it helps you to get really clear specifically about what you want your love life to look like, what you want your wealth to look like, what your health, your relationships, all these kind of things. All you need to do is just download them and you can start watching them straight away. I've been doing this business for 13 years now. I think my first Mind Movie I created back in 2006. So that's 14 years ago. And I'm still making Mind Movies. Actually, I made 3 Mind Movies at the beginning of 2020. One was on relationship. And here we are. One was on the kids program. And, and my goal was to get into the US schooling system. And we had our first school come on board. And then the other one was about my health. And of course, I'm in the best health I've been in for a while, and I'm navigating through the dreaded menopause situation, and I'm feeling more in control of my health and my body and my vitality than I have for a really long time. So I encourage you to download the Mind Movies, get watching them, and to really figure out, what it is that you want in your life as well.
Right, and they'll be up on the Symposium page. And on your personal page as well, Natalie, so people will have an opportunity to click on those links and use them. Use these tools. They're remarkable. Thank you so much for that. Did you have another question from Natalie? I think we have time for maybe one quick question here to wrap up.
I just so appreciate what you've been doing. And it's like, what aspect of Mind Movies did you take into the educational system that you really feel is helping to make a difference with young people? Because they need so much support. And as you say often, self-esteem, and just to feel the love and value that they are as a human being. So how have you worked that into the program that you're putting out into schools?
Yeah, well, I actually created 2 new versions of the Mind Movie software. So one was for under 12s and one is for teenagers, so that they can actually create Mind Movies themselves. So for the schools that because personal growth studies itself is psychology and science. It's not law of attraction. It's not anything like that. It's actually, focused specifically on developmental stages of children and what's most important to them, their sense of belonging, their self-esteem, their self-worth, their personal standards, self-regulating emotions, all these really important things. Yes, it has gratitude and empathy and a whole bunch of other stuff. But we wanted them, when they're looking at their goal setting, that they can create a vision board, or they can actually create a mind movie, which is a whole lot more fun. So if they have access to like a tablet or a computer, they get to really get in there and have fun with their own, making their own mind movies for themselves. And it's something they can also do with their family. What makes it different to the adult version is, all the photos are age relevant. But in the adults version, one of the categories is finding a perfect partner, which is probably not relevant to a 10-year-old. So, we have more things like, looking at their school grades and their education and sports, and friendships and that kind of thing. So something that's more relevant to them. But we're really looking forward to seeing, a lot of the kids being able to dare to dream big.
Yes.
Like dare to think about their future in a way that's going to be, positive and empowering.
I want to ask about that, because I know that there's so many challenges that young people are looking at into the future that I'd like to know how you're addressing that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the kids are addressing it themselves. We're giving them all the tools for them to become who they need to be able to solve these problems. And I'm what the tools that we're giving them is like, I want you to believe that if you want to clean up the ocean, that you can find a way to do that. I want to give you the belief that if you, want to, tackle mental health, if you want to, save the environment, save the forest, whatever that is, that you will be able to find a way to do that. That's really the foundation of the program, because they're going to come up with solutions and ideas and new ways of being that we haven't even thought of. I'm just giving them the environment and the tools and the skills and everything they need to dare to dream, to be able to create that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. Talk about for the good of all, huh?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And that's
because you think about it, the future president is actually in school right now.
That's right.
So let's make sure that they get access to what they need.
The dare to dream part is so important. We have all been, devalued by so many people in our lives. And it's so important to realize that dreaming is really important, is valid, and there shouldn't be a top on it.
Right.
You should just keep going for life and not try to limit yourself, because life never would. Life doesn't. Life is open-ended, and we have taken on so many limitations, just like you were talking about with you and Bert looking at the computers, and because of your viewing patterns, you see different realities.
Right.
And the way we've been raised, the way we've been channeled into different aspects of what it is to be a human being. Thank you for being one of those that's breaking open pathways for people to say, to be a human being is so much more fantabulous than what we've made it.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Oh, and I just want to thank you so much for taking this time together with us. I love your work, and I love you, Natalie. I love your authentic being, your heart, your passion, your wisdom, and what you're doing. What a gift. What a gift. So
thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's been so awesome being here. Thank you for asking me.
It's amazing. So lovely.
Yeah, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We've got lots more great interviews, and you're going to love Natalie's gifts, so check them out.
Please.
All right. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you.
Blessings and love.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching and being a part of the Divine Paradigm co-creation. The time has come for us to work together in co-creative ways, with the outcome being greater than any of us could have achieved alone. You make a difference in this important time. So thank you so much. We want to let you know tomorrow there will be another amazing conversation with one of the heartfelt thought leaders who've chosen to be a part of this symposium. Each program is available for 48 hours, and all of them can be replayed on Sundays. You'll be receiving an email in your inbox that will take you to the next conversation. So make sure you're getting our emails. Please stay with us and stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun with some powerful messages. The full program takes place 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, for 3 weeks. And the full program will also be available at the end for purchase. Keep checking back to the page to enjoy our next conversation. Blessings and love.